we want nervous system regulation to some degree so that we can stay in creative thinking and we can stay in attunement with each other. And nervous system regulation is not so that we can put up with shitty abusive behavior.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And it's also not so that we can numb out and be like toxic masculine, non-reactive you know, there's all sorts of pieces to toxic masculinity, but one of them is like, I'm not reactive and women are hysterical and emotions are negative and bad and scary, you know? So I think we talked a lot on the first episode about that as well, that I don't want to walk around and be numb and be dissociated, which compliant and behave.
That's
right. Which may come across as regulated.
Right.
Welcome to Are We Happy Yet?
I'm Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist.
I'm Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker. We're not just friends, we're therapists who have been working with our clients on improving their mental health and relationships for years. Coupled with our own life experiences, we found ourselves in a conundrum. As mental health becomes less stigmatized and conversations about healing, self-help, and personal growth have gone mainstream, why are more and more Americans reporting lower life satisfaction and increased mental health issues with each passing year?
The question kept nagging at us. Despite the growing openness around mental health, why are we seeing an increase in anxiety, depression, and isolation?
It's baffling, right? We're all diving into therapy, self-help, psychedelics, meditation, life hacks, you name it. But the sense of connection and well-being seems to be slipping away, no matter what we do.
So Jane and I got curious about the bigger picture, how creativity, politics, technology, work, spirituality, culture, and more impact our well-being. Our goal is to spark open, relatable conversations about these topics. Through unfiltered discussions, a few uncomfortable truths, we'll have lots of laughter and lightheartedness along the way. Join us each week as we dig deep into these questions, share insights, and try to understand what will truly, finally, make us happy.
Let's go.
We have our first second-time guest on today, Erica Bonham. And Erica, I don't think we told you this, but you have our most listened to episode ever on Are We Happy Yet?
So that's amazing.
I didn't even know that until we went back in to get this one scheduled. So I was like, this is perfect.
Oh, thanks. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with me. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we are going to spend some time today talking about your new book that comes out today, the day that this will be released.
Yes. Well, the physical book is in the world. You can order it from my website. And if you order it from my website, you get a signed copy. But the day that this podcast releases is the 99-cent Kindle launch day. Yeah. So even though I'm very conflicted about doing an Amazon bestseller for many reasons, but you know, until I can be in more widespread local bookstores, it really is the best way that small authors can get a wider reach. And I hope people can hold that nuance with me. So yeah, for you know, March 8th, hopefully this is out March 18th, and that will be the 99-cent Kindle launch. And so we'll put that hopefully in the show notes, or I'll give you that link for people to go and grab their 99-cent copy. But you can buy both. You can buy a physical copy on the website, get a signed copy, and then get the 99-cent to help me reach bestseller.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, and your book is called Always Enough, Never Done. Here it is. It's so beautiful. I read it last week, and I literally loved it.
Yeah, she was texting me. She was like, oh my God, Erica's book, this and that.
Thank you.
And I have not read it, so I'll be the non-reader.
Great.
You can be the reader, and you can
see
be
if
the author.
you're hyped up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Erica, well, why don't we jump right in, and you can tell us a little bit about the book, and just tell us about what it is, and then we can kind of dig in a little deeper about what it was like for you to bring this baby into the world.
Yeah. So this is volume 1. I can't remember if we talked about it on the first podcast, but volume 1, I ended up writing a really long book. And so I ended up having to split it into two. And I'm actually realizing now that it's really good, because volume 2 is going to be much more about the collective and, relationships, but especially with given what's happening in the collective, I'm gathering more just information and things that I want to share in that volume. So it was actually, I think, meant to be or whatever, even though I really wrestled with I was like, I don't want to split it into two books.
We did talk about this. I remember, and I loved the conversation about like fitting it into sort of a format that works for people, that's not overwhelming, but then also your spirit kind of wanting it to look a certain way, which I think everybody who makes something kind of hits some of that stuff,
right? But one of the things that we talk about is sort of that balance between what is inspired action and what is the practice of surrender. And surrender, whether or not you're a spiritual person or whatever, a lot of the things that happen are out of our control. And I've sort of clawed my way back to some semblance of a spiritual practice. It's definitely dirty spirituality, what I would call. But I really trust that a larger, loving universe has my back on this. And she's like, just wait. Like there's more that we want in this volume 2, I think. And so it's really beautiful. And there's already things that I want to go back and change in this book. So it's so funny, it's like, I have to trust that it is enough. This iteration of this is enough as it is, even though I still view it sort of as this emergent project and this emergent document. Because there's probably going to be things in here that I read in a year or read in 5 years that I'm just going to cringe at. And I don't know, like, want to change. So, it's been a very meta process. Like all the things that I'm writing about, I've had to relearn and deepen. And, it's the book that I needed to read and continue to try to double down on what I invite people to do in the book.
Do you want to share maybe like what the book just generally is about and what readers will get when they do their 99-cent Kindle order today?
Yeah. And also, actually, before you even do that, if any of our listeners missed your first episode, can you also tell us who you are and what you do and why we should buy your book?
Yes, absolutely. So my name's Erica Bonham. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Colorado. I'm also a nervous system regulation coach. I'm a speaker. I'm an author, and I specialize in EMDR, trauma recovery. I do ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And then my practice is AVOS counseling, AVOS, and you can buy the book on avoscounseling.com if you want a signed copy. And then the Kindle is obviously on Amazon. I start with really just kind of talking about the basics of the nervous system and what dysregulates it. And the main thing that dysregulates it is trauma. And of course we think about trauma, big T trauma, as abuse or war or a car accident or, whatever. But I also talk about little T trauma, which is most of us have that, and from my view, it's sometimes traumatic just to be in this world. It's a traumatic. It's hard to be in the world right now. And if it's not feeling precarious, you're probably a little bit dissociated, which, is okay. I mean, we all have to sort of dissociate to some degree to make it through. But I talk about just the missing experience that a lot of us have from our our caregivers, and just from our society in general. We're not very attuned to each other. We're very good at psychobabble speak. We can say sort of the words, but it's different than really feeling into attunement and feeling into, I see you, I've got you, I'm with you, but I'm also regulated. So I talk about that, and I jam pack it full then of resources, of somatic resources that people can practice. and then diving into how things land on the body. We get a little bit into addiction, a little bit into grief, a little bit into chronic pain. And then I talk about both the descending, what I call descending path, which is the trauma work, the digestion, the repatterning, the processing, the transmutation of that stuck energy. And then also the ascending path work, which is like, what does it mean to create new identities? What do we want to be creating? What's the more positive vision that we want to hold with ourselves, with our relationships, and with the world, which obviously will be more in volume 2. But this is really sort of planting the seeds for what we want to create, because we can't just clear things out. We also need to be creating something new and creating new visions and new identities and new it's emergent, right? This work is emergent. And so that's a theme throughout the book, is emergent work, never done. And but you're always enough. So, and again, another theme is that both and the holding multiple truths at the same time.
Erica, that's what I loved about it. A couple of things that struck me is, I think you're exactly right. Like, there's so much psychobabble around nervous system and trauma and healing. And I think you really broke it down in this book in a way that like makes sense and is approachable and is relatable. Like, I was with my mom on this trip where I read this book, and I mean, my mom like is a mom. She lives in West Virginia. Like she some of the shit I talk about on the podcast, she's like, Hannah, it's so above my head. And I had her read some of this, and she was like, oh, this is what you're talking about. This makes sense. So I think you really broke it down in a way that's more approachable for folks. Even me, who like, this is the water I swim in. I think it really clicked for me. And then the other piece I just want to say, like, yeah, I'm just thinking last time we recorded, there was hope that Trump wasn't going to be president, and now he is, and shit is on fire. And I just, I can go down the negative path really quickly. And your book really helped me kind of give myself permission that even though the world feels like it sucks right now and things are really hard, like, to feel joy and see the positive and connect. So I just think you did a really, 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 really wonderful job. And I highly recommend it to everyone to read it, because I almost find it to be like a manual for being a human in 2025.
Thank you. Yeah, that is also one of the reasons that I wrote it. I was like, I just want my kids to have my voice in something, but also to find their own wisdom. And so take what I hope readers take what they can from it. And if it doesn't resonate for you, that's okay. But the hope is that it guides you to your own wisdom and guides us to our collective wisdom as well. So thanks, Hannah. That's really sweet. And I'm glad your mom read a little bit of it. That's awesome. Yeah.
Can you, just from the therapist point of view, I think there's this like, trauma work is hard, trauma work is scary, trauma work feels bad. And what I'm hearing is this like, yes, and which we talked about last time. And the creation of new identities, the positive, joyful, exuberant part of healing, which gets, I think, really passed over quite a bit. Why do you think we pass over it? How do we understand it more deeply?
Yeah. I mean, my sense is like, I think people become trauma therapists because they have trauma, most likely. And I know that especially my first maybe 10 years, and even now, I really have to be intentional about focusing on celebration, focusing on good things, focusing on the victory. Because one, I think human brains naturally go to the negative. But then if you have trauma, if you are really unhealed, and I don't even love that word, because we're all unhealed, no matter if we've done, like, I'm still unhealed. And again, that's the point of the book. Like, we're good. We can step into our power, and we have work to do. Always we have work to do. And so, but as a very unhealed, let's say, trauma therapist, my brain would go to like, let's find the problem, let's find the root, let's find the thing that's the pain. And on some level that actually makes me a really good therapist, because I'm not afraid of going to the deep, dark, hard places. And so I think there's this sense of trauma therapists, like it's only focusing on the dark or only focusing on the negative. And I sometimes think that we're trying to do a deeper level of work than we have done ourselves. And so it's scary for us to go to the deepest and darkest with people if we haven't gone to that level ourselves. So I think and if we haven't done some real reprocessing and some real digestion, and we haven't actually felt the like, holy shit, I feel better, I feel different, I feel energetically different, I feel different in my body, I feel like a different human. And that can bring up its own fear, that can like, whoa, who am I without this self-protection? Who am I without this identity? We have to talk about that. But if we haven't felt that, it can feel like we're just stewing in people's stuff. Yeah. And so, yes, it is hard. It is uncomfortable. It is messy. And if we're doing it effectively, people are going to actually feel better. They're going to feel stronger. They're going to feel more liberated. They're going to feel lighter. They're going to feel like they can set boundaries, like they matter. They're going to feel a little bit more capacity for love, for themselves and for other people. And so, yeah, I think we tend to naturally get stuck in the negative as humans, right? That was evolutionarily protective for us. So we have to hack it. We have to hack millions of years of evolution to really get into the celebration, get into the good, get into the positive. And really, I think, especially at this time in history, we are really being asked to acknowledge the severity of the situation that we are in. And I just know that this work, whatever is going to work, which is emergent, is going to have joy involved in it. We have to be able to offer something better culturally to those that are wrapped up in, what I would consider fascism, or what I would consider dangerous government, and are in agreement with this, that are in their own echo chamber, the left included, but I am specifically talking about the right only listening to certain news and only having access to certain information. And we, on the left, we have to be able to offer something better culturally. We have to be able to offer something that is like rooted in joy and rooted in connection and rooted in
100%.
Like we need
100%.
you here. We need you to do this with us.
100%.
And we got to put our fucking shoes on and leave our chapstick at home sometimes and just do it. You know what I mean? Like, we can't be comfortable all the time.
And I think it's too what is, and like after reading your book, this is something I like sat with a little bit, is like what comes up for us when we think about like being positive, or we think about like feeling joy, or we think about celebrating. For me, my own shit is like, it feels irresponsible to do, right? So it's like, what is our shit that comes up when we don't trend towards the negative? And I think that's like what was really illuminating in your book, is there is a whole nother side. And what is your system and like your programming around celebration and love and feeling good, right?
Yeah. And it is nuanced, because there's certainly a way that we can toxic positivity this shit. And and I think we have to be especially careful who we're talking to, the context that we're using this kind of language. And just being a white-bodied person, I'm not going to tell a Black person that's really feeling the weight of something right now to look at the positive. Like, we have to be very nuanced and tender about it. And even if we're just showing up with love and showing up with this energy, this resonance with people. And so would it be okay if I just like tried something with your audience and, just invited
Yes,
us to do
definitely.
something? So just even if you want to close, don't, if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But, just if you're in a place where you could close your eyes or just notice the bracing, right? Just notice when you think about the world right now, just notice how it is here in your body. Just notice the clenching. Or even if you're thinking about noticing the positive, notice what comes up. Notice this polarity, the negative, the positive, the dark, the light, the danger, the clenching, the hope. And just see if you can bring awareness to it first. And what would it be like to just have resonance with that? Like, I see you, I love you. Just imagine it to have a little bit more spaciousness, just offering breath. Maybe there can be just a little invitation to soften, not to have no boundaries, but just to soften the clenching, soften the body a little bit. Yeah, and you can come back to opening your eyes or come back to the room. I think if we can just do that, just to start, just to throughout your day, notice the clenching. I do it. I'm like, it's like clench. Okay, soften. Okay, clench. Okay.
Yeah.
One thing
my clients.
Go ahead.
My clients tell me they watch me. They're learning it from me because I do it in session, right? Where I'm leading the session, and then I'm constantly reminding myself to soften and put my shoulders down and all of that.
Yeah, one thing that I would change in the book, and I think I speak to this a little bit, but and we talked about this on the first episode, I think too, which is like nervous system regulation is not about just like sitting in lotus position and like staying calm all the time. Right. Nervous system regulation actually is like, sometimes you are angry and you're not, but there can be anger with some sense of like centeredness. And like, it's like no, we are not going to do that right now. It's less of like, and sometimes being reactive is the thing that we need. I don't know. It's tricky.
Hey, it's Jess and Heather from Hey Birdie, and we are friends of the Are We Happy Yet podcast. We know this community is full of women who are deep in the work, getting curious, growing, and asking the big questions. And if you've been feeling that pull for something more, we have an invitation for you.
Join us for our Awakening Migration. It's a seasonal cleanse for the soul. It's for the woman who feels an undeniable stirring in her gut, a whisper, fucking roar, telling her it's time to wake up, shake shit off, and step into what's next. 6 weeks, deep intentional gatherings, no to-do lists, no prep, just a space to land exactly as you are.
We move, we play, we reconnect with our bodies. We get real. It's part mystery school, part group therapy, part gathering of the best friends you never knew you had. If you're craving real, no bullshit connection, if you're tired of putting yourself last, if something inside of you is whispering or screaming that it's time, you're not alone. And this is for you.
Spring has sprung, birds, and this season is calling you forward. We'd even like to extend a special discount of $111 if you register with a friend before 3/31. Use the code AWHY. Join us at heybirdie.co or on the gram at hey_birdie_co.
Let's migrate.
we want nervous system regulation to some degree so that we can stay in creative thinking and we can stay in attunement with each other. And nervous system regulation is not so that we can put up with shitty abusive behavior.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And it's also not so that we can numb out and be
go.
like toxic masculine, non-reactive part, you know,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of pieces to toxic masculinity, but
Right.
one of them is like, I'm not reactive and women are hysterical
Right.
and emotions are negative and bad and scary, you know? So I think we talked a lot on the first episode about that as well, that I don't want to walk around and be numb and be
Exactly.
Dissociated.
Right.
which
Compliant.
may compliant and behave.
That's right.
Which may come across as regulated.
Exactly. I think that's a really misguided image, right? Of that regulation means calm in all circumstances. You know, and it is calm-ish or calmer because we can neutralize, you know, it's tricky. It's so nuanced. We want to be able to neutralize things where we can and disarm things where we can, but sometimes energy needs to be met with the same amount of energy. And so I think it takes multiple lanes. It takes multiple lanes. And so I think there's room for, you know, taking what works for you and having more capacity to do the things that feel aligned for you individually, relationally, and in the collective.
I wonder too about just having more choice in your reaction, right? That I think that the concept that your emotion, your reaction have to be joined always, that if you take away the automatic reaction, you're not allowed to have your feelings, scares clients and scares people, right? Like, well, then I'm disempowered. Then I'm not allowed to be sad or mad or angry or set a boundary. And I talk with my clients about, well, what about an increase in choice? Like you now get to choose, you can be just as angry, but maybe having some choice about how you respond to that.
Exactly.
And again, not always, to your point about being nuanced. Like sometimes we don't get to have choice or that's too hard or not appropriate or whatever, but I think that could be part of it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Do we want to read a little bit? You want me to read?
Yes, that was what I was going to ask you, if you will read a couple excerpts for us.
Yeah, I marked, there's something that you just said, Jane, that feels very similar. Yeah, okay, this is kind of perfect. It folds right in. Okay, so in a trauma-organized nervous system, one that is really organized and motivated by self-protection, we are no longer organized around connection and joy. These systems become overdeveloped and cause us to be in a braced and constricted state most, if not all, of the time. The limbic part of the brain is there to keep us alive and safe, not happy. Unless we are truly in life or death situations regularly, having a trauma-organized, overactive limbic system does not serve our best and most badass lives. So although we definitely do not want to get rid of these reactions, we also don't want to operate from them in everyday situations when there is no physical danger. This is a tender topic for those who experience systemic oppression. People who live in trans or genderqueer bodies or people of color often feel unsafe in our society, and they're not wrong. They feel their safety is often or always threatened. They feel they can rarely move through the world in a relaxed state or safely. My invitation is to practice non-duality with this. It is important to understand and honor the lack of safety, which is very real, a very real experience for people who don't have much systemic power. And we can find the corners of power that we do have. We have some power to create spaces and communities where our nervous systems can take off the armor. We can also be part of a collective action toward a reimagined world. We can acknowledge the very real influence systemic oppression has on various communities. And for those of us with subjugated pieces of our identity, we can find our voice, rest, and do our damnedest to create lives of pleasure and connection. For those parts of our identity with more systemic power, we can stay humble, be part of collective action, and listen more. It is totally understandable and oh so very human that our systems are focused on self-protection. It is rough out here, y'all. However, if we don't consistently help our nervous systems heal, we miss out on what is primary. we miss out on enjoying a life really meant to be open to connection with ourselves, our bodies, other humans, all living things, and the universe, source, divine spirit, should you feel aligned with that. It is difficult to feel connection if our system is focused on self-protection at all costs. We can have boundaries like a mother, but that is not the same as being armored. If you are angry typing an email to your son's elementary school music teacher, who has yet again scheduled something during rehearsal time for the theater show you are directing that he damn well knows will conflict for the kids participating in both performances, no personal experience here, wink, wink, it is probably best to delete everything you just wrote before violently hitting the send button, go for a walk, literally shake your body out, and wait until your frontal lobes are online again before rewriting that email from a more regulated place. The problem is if your fight response, if you're in fight response, your system is saying, if you don't act now, if you don't hit that send button right now, you will be in danger. So you must override a couple of millions of years of evolution to stop that protective reaction. The choice we do have is whether we are willing to engage in the work needed to address what happened and be truthful with ourselves and others about how our past has shaped us. If we do choose to engage in this work, it is difficult, but our brains and subsequent behavioral and emotional patterns can be rewired. Our left and right brains begin to communicate, and the upper and lower regions of our brain also become more integrated. Trauma work is like walking through the center of the fire. It is why many people do not engage in this deeper work. It sucks at times, but liberation, growth, freedom, and connection are on the other side.
Wow.
See, I told you it was
I
good.
know, I can't wait. You can't wait.
Thanks, Joy.
I mean, and so that's the piece, right? And so like maybe that, I mean, what you just walked us through is bringing up for me, like, this is the power, right? Is like, do I have a moment today to feel my bracing and breathe? Do I have a moment today to, connect with someone? Like, what is in my power today to shift and heal my system a bit? And I mean, I'm excited for volume 2, but even in this, that will shift the collective. That's what
100%.
you're saying, Erica.
Yes. And it is so much more empowering, right? If we can just take a pause and notice it. And then the two components are bringing in the body. You have to find something. You cannot think your way through this. We are not going to be able to think our way into a better world, into transformation, into healing. We have to bring in the body, and then the other part of this, and we have to bring in love, because we have to be able to attune to it. We have to be able to like resonate with whatever is coming up, and that is how actually it softens. I think there's another part. Actually, I think I marked it really quick. I even say, so when your woo-woo therapist with their little cup of chamomile and paisley shawl is sitting there inviting you to notice what is here with compassion, it is not just because they are a tree hugger trying to get you to believe their hippie crap. Physiological changes are happening in your nervous system when you notice things with love, non-judgmentally. So it's a physiological shift in the system when we can bring in love. And if there is parts of you that are not ready to do this work, that makes sense. And a good therapist is going to give you the resources that you need to be able to do the deeper work. You don't just dive into the deeper work. You have to have some resources. And if there's parts of you that don't want to do it, it's understandable. They're just protecting you. But what we need to do, that just tells us that we need the right resources. We need somatic resources. We need resources of attachment and love and belonging. We need resources around different skills, different, skill set and practices, different language maybe. But those two components, the body and love, is really important. You're not going to be able to think your way through it.
And in your book, you have a whole chapter of resources of all different kinds. And so that's something else that I loved is, some people don't want to have had traumatic experiences with therapy. And so to equip them with a shitload of resources that they can do in their day. Huge. I mean, I think therapy is not the only resource, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's oftentimes something that needs to be held and witnessed by another person.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not really worried about AI taking over our jobs, because there is something about having an attuned nervous system, especially when you are doing the trauma work, that I think is pretty important. What I do hope is to democratize some things in here and to help make this accessible, because it is expensive. You know, a lot of therapists don't take insurance because they don't reimburse us very well. And, you know, it can be really hard to access therapy. So if this can save you a few $1,000s to get some things under your belt, and then you can spend a little bit of time doing some, reprocessing work with another person attuning to you, that is huge for me. I really hope that happens. And yeah, I do love that the amount of resources that I've included here, and there's a downloadable, I think that's actually part of what we put in the last show notes, is that that freebie 11 polyvagal resources or whatever, but each resource has a video attached to it, has me teaching it to you, so that you can practice it on your own. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm talking with a lot of people now, and I'm just curious to get your take on this. We can't really have conversations at this point in history without talking about the politics and what's happening in the world. I have clients who are saying like, all that I can do is regulate and like wake up in the morning. Or I have clients who are saying like, if I do my own personal work, like you're talking about this personal trauma work, bringing love in, all those things, that's not enough. You know, me waking up every day and just like taking care of myself is not enough. I'm curious your thoughts about that. I think there's like a hopelessness, like what can I do? But then there's also a pressure, like I should be doing something. And then there's also people who are like, you're not doing enough.
Yeah. Right.
That's like 5 questions probably in one, but I think those are just kind of the things I'm struggling with right now.
Oh my gosh. And aren't we all? Like, I feel all of those things and am navigating those things with clients. I do think the biggest invitation for us is to find a way to tap into collective action, is to find something that you are not just doing by yourself. Find a mom's group that is organized. I just, and I'm in Arvada. And so there's a group of moms that are like, we're getting together once a month and we're deciding on a collective action. We're either going to call people as a collective, we're going to get involved in the school board stuff, we're going to and so just find a group that you can do some sort of collective action with. And, if there's any beauty that's coming out of this, it's that is happening way more than I think it would had Kamala won. I think had Kamala won, we would all be like, okay, we're fine. We're
Sit
good
back
now.
and relax. Yeah.
And we are all like, oh no, we better put our boots on here and get going. And that is actually very, very needed. We need collective movement, collective action. And I understand that that's hard to find sometimes, that it can be like feeling like an echo chamber. I'm not saying like just post on social media or whatever. Find somewhere where you can, even if it's just 1 or 2 friends that you're going to like go to a town council meeting with, or that you're going to like go to the school board meeting with, or you're going to make calls together and find scripts so that you sit together and you don't have to do it alone. Right? Call people that aren't even your representatives. Like call Lauren Boebert if you're in Colorado, even if she's not there, and find a script and do it. And do it with friends. I think collective action is what people of color have been asking for us to do. And it was like after George Floyd, they were like, oh, are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? Nope. we're not gonna do it. And I say to
We're
people,
gonna
listen,
post a black box.
psychotherapy is insufficient at dealing with this level of stress because it is individual, and what is needed is relationship and collective action.
Totally. Yeah.
So
In addition to probably your therapy work.
of course
Personal
For a
growth.
lot of people,
yeah, of
right?
course, of course, yes, because we don't want to be doing collective action from this super reactive state. It's understandable that the reaction might be moving you to do it, which is good, right? If your heart, it's like, if you're heartbroken right now, if you're angry right now, that is good. That means you're alive. That means you are paying attention. That means your nervous system is working. That means you have not let apathy and dissociation completely take over.
Yeah.
But just doing your morning meditations is probably insignificant. And again, there are multiple lanes, right? Maybe your lane is more in farming or in holding spiritual space, but we have to be very clear and very authentic about what it is that we are doing that's actually moving the needle forward a little bit. And even if, I consider, I direct musical theater for kids. It's like, that is, for me, that's not direct activism in this way that we think about it, but it is creating the world that we want to live in. And I'm like, they are so dysregulated too. You can like feel it in their little bodies. They're like they're like vibrating. And so even just me, like, okay, everybody, and they're elementary school kids, so they still have buy-in. I'm like, we're all just gonna put our hands on the ground and just feel the earth underneath us, and we're gonna send each other good energy. Remember, we're in this together. I'm planting those seeds. So even if you're doing that, like, there's a chance for you to, again, look at the victory, look at the positive, look at what you are doing, because perfectionism and not enoughness is part of the shit that we're trying to break up.
Yeah. 100%.
When it feels like it's that's easily brought into really any space that humans go into, right? The not enoughness, or I'm doing it right and you're doing it wrong, just because we are human and that's what we do to each other. So I think that can be brought into the activism spaces, and that can be brought into the healing spaces. And then unfortunately, that can be a big turnoff for people,
Totally.
So there's this simultaneous, like, curious both of your thoughts on this, but I think knowing you're enough, or working on knowing you're enough, and going into space and saying it's okay if I get criticism or criticized. I can handle that. That's okay. And also working on looking at other people and saying what you're doing is enough, or I'm not in your life, so I'm not going to be the person to judge, your action steps, possibly.
Exactly. It is so nuanced, because I think that some people are called to be asking for people to be doing more, that like, we need you to be doing more. Especially, I see a lot of Black women on Instagram or whatever, like, we need you to be doing more. Why aren't you doing more? And I get that. And I want to hold that. And we, as white folks, or for other identities that again give us systemic power, I do think our role is just to shut up and listen and digest some of that a little bit, and to notice the defensiveness that might come up, to notice the clenching that might come up, rather than to go cognitive and be like, well, I'm doing what I can, or la la la, I can't do anything right, and just to shh and notice where that lands in your belly, notice where that lands on your shoulders, and just listen, just digest it for a minute. And then we can find the ways that do feel aligned for us, and visualize, like, okay, what's one thing that you wish you would have done different in the past? When it, like, did you let a racist comment slide? Did you let whatever, right? Did you choose comfort instead of stepping into a difficult conversation with somebody. And what would it be like to feel your body doing something different from a more regulated place? And the invitation that we are being asked to step into is, how do we use discernment between discomfort and safety? And how are we willing to just be uncomfortable? I've had this vision for a while of, like, the protesters outside of Planned Parenthood. I just have this vision of me just like bringing my lawn chair next to them and like listen. Like, I just want to hear why you're here. Like, what is your story? And then would it be okay if I told you my story? Because I am basically here because of abortions. And like, I would not exist without both my adoptive mom having abortions, my birth mom having abortions. Like, I exist because, and my perspective is like, my soul found my way here. And so I just want to share that story with you, like, and why I feel it differently, right? Because my mom would have been stuck in an abusive relationship had she not had that. Like, so I just have this like vision of me showing up all regulated and like offering the person a bubbly water or something. And like, it's like, I'm just going to listen to you. Would it be okay if you listen to me? Just, I don't know. Like, it's not going to change the whole movement, but that's how we are going to soften all of this.
Yeah.
And there are multiple lanes. Sometimes people need to be met with the same amount of energy. And sometimes soft and listening and lovey-dovey shit isn't going to work. Sometimes people need to be just like, no, that is not okay. You are not doing that. We're not going there. And that's it. We're not over explaining. We're not being all soft and cute about it.
But either way, you're talking about high levels of regulation, right?
Yeah.
You have to be highly regulated to be criticized, or to have somebody say you haven't done enough and to say, oh, okay, I can listen to that. Like,
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, and that's important information for me, and I'm up for hearing that.
Totally.
And you also need high levels of regulation to say, like, absolutely not, that's not okay, and I'm meeting that with a similar energy.
Totally.
And
And that is why it is so important for people who do have maybe more systemic power to find their inherent worthiness. So if we're talking about men's worth has been historically connected to how much money they make, if they are the provider, if they're strong, if they're whatever, right? And I think a lot of cisgendered men are like very confused right now. They are like, what am I supposed to do? Because I do think they get conflicting messages that if they're heterosexual, like, women still there is some sense of wanting protection or masculinity or even being provided for. And yet they're also being asked to be emotional and be sensitive and whatever. Right. And so, I think men are very confused about their place in society right now. And I think it is a result of many, many years of trauma and patriarchy. And for men to really be able to like find their inherent worthiness that isn't connected to productivity, that isn't connected to, being strong or being dominant or being whatever, that is going to be a game changer for them to actually open their hearts and open their spirituality, whatever that means to them, and not just get stuck in sex and dominance and whatever. If they can actually find their inherent worth, then maybe they could just listen.
Yeah.
And same with white people. It's like, we need to find our inherent worthiness that isn't connected to white supremacy or white privilege or productivity or perfectionism or looks or whatever, so that we can just and then find some freaking resiliency, and again, put our damn boots on and let's go, let's go. Let's do this thing. Which is what people in more subjugated identities need. They don't need us to be more fragile.
Erica, what do you want folks to walk away with from reading your book?
Well, I'm so glad that you walked away with a renewed sense of optimism. That makes me really excited and hopeful that this does have something to offer. You know, I was telling you at the beginning that this process really asked me to like work with my inner critics. Our inner critics can be quite cruel and mean. And, you know, even the other day, I was just like, oh, this is just recycled bullshit. Ah, nobody wants this. Like, oh my God. Like, so I really hope that there is a new level of not just cognitive understanding, but of a body-centered understanding, of a heart-centered understanding of what healing can actually look like, and feeling some sense of hope and optimism and liberation, especially given what's happening in the collective. And, you know, if I can just offer, again, this is not toxic positivity, and we have some real dark shit that we're going to go through. And history does not bode well for these folks. This is not going to last forever. And time moves faster right now. You know, we have this, don't we all get the sense that time is moving really, really fast? And maybe that's a good thing right now. Yeah. But I hope that people walk away with some optimism and with some real strategies and with a sense that we are not alone. We are connected to each other, and we don't have to do this alone. We can't do this alone. We are really connected to each other, but it's going to take us to some, like, we got to dig in. We got to be willing to heal our shit so that we can show up and hear some feedback and not take it so damn personally and crumble and be so fragile in it.
Well, Erica, thanks so much for joining us again. And truly, like, thank you for writing this book. I mean, it has helped me. So you know that you've helped one person.
Thank you, really.
And I know it will help many, many others. So we'll link everything and buy the book for 99 cents on Kindle today.
March 18th.
And great.
All right.
Love it. And if people also want that physical copy or don't have a Kindle, but, you know, 99 cents, you can totally do that. Just Kindle.
Just
support a local.
You don't have to have
author.
a Kindle. Just support your local author. 99 cents.
That's
right. Not that
That's
much
right.
for Amazon. But if you do want a signed copy, you can order it. You can order it through Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, you need to order it through my website. And so I'll send that link to y'all.
Perfect.
As well.
We have limited time in a podcast, and I know we felt this way last time you hopped off. There's so many more things we could have talked about, directions that we could have gone. You were talking about the trouble with, like, if you're an artist now, writer, author, you kind of have to be on Amazon, and there's all these issues with Amazon. I mean, the nuance and the both and are everywhere, and
we're in it, baby.
We're in it with you, but thank you for being on. Thank you for the amazing work that you do in your writing life and beyond. And we'll just be swirling around your universe.
Same for you all. I'm so grateful for y'all and all that love and gratitude. Back at your beautiful souls and work. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Erica.
You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A Green Roof Studios production. This episode was recorded and produced by Hannah Buzzo and Jane Thatcher Hahn.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. Your support helps us reach more listeners. And for every rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we're donating to a charity connected to one of our guests. Check the show notes for more details on this month's featured charity.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.